Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Imagine, you're getting close to retirement.
Yeah.
You've worked hard, done all the right things, maybe, but there's this nagging feeling, isn't there?
That little seed of doubt.
Like, have I really saved enough? Am I secure for what's next?
And that worry, it hits, well, a huge number of people. Way more than you might think.
It really does.
It's striking, actually, how often that scenario plays out.
Yeah.
Decades of work, raising families.
Yeah.
And yet, that comfortable retirement still feels kind of out of reach.
It makes you think, where were those key moments? Where could things have gone, well, differently?
Exactly.
And that's precisely what we're diving into today. We're taking a really close look at the most common financial missteps.
The ones that tend to trip people up.
Yeah, in their 30s, their 40s, even into their 50s.
Right.
Think of this as a kind of roadmap, maybe, to help you navigate these potential hazards.
So you can avoid them, hopefully.
Or if you kind of see yourself in these patterns, you can start making some smart adjustments now.
Our mission today is pretty straightforward. Just to give you the knowledge to feel more informed, more, in control of your financial future.
Which raises a big question, though. There's so much financial advice out there now, right?
Everywhere.
So why do these same mistakes keep popping up again and again?
That's the puzzle.
Well, our sources point to a few interesting things. There's that cultural pressure, keeping up with the Joneses.
Oh, definitely. Social media doesn't help there.
Not at all. And then, for a lot of us, formal financial education just wasn't really a thing growing up.
No, you learned by doing.
Which often means learning through trial and error. And that can be costly.
Very costly. And what about those, mental shortcuts, cognitive biases?
Yeah, those play a huge role. Like maybe being a bit too optimistic about future pay rises when you're young.
Right, so you take on more debt.
Exactly. Or just underestimating the chances of, a job loss or a big health issue. Things happen.
Things happen. And it's still kind of taboo to talk openly about money sometimes, isn't it? It really is in many circles. So bad habits can just fester. If you zoom out, it's not just individual slip-ups. It's often this complex mix of our choices and, bigger economic stuff.
Right, societal pressures too.
But just recognizing these patterns, that's a really powerful first step.
Okay, so let's get specific. Let's start with the 30s. Foundational years, right?
Absolutely. Big life changes often happen then.
Career moves, maybe getting married, first home, kids.
All of it. And it's really when the groundwork for long-term security should be laid. But where does it go wrong?
Well, one surprisingly big issue is just living paycheck to paycheck.
Even as incomes are generally rising in your 30s.
Yeah, even then. One study we saw mentioned nearly 8 out of 10 full-time workers in their 30s are in that boat.
Wow. That's huge.
Often comes down to, not making that emergency fund a priority.
The safety net.
Right. Or just not having a clear handle on where the money's actually going. No real budget.
Flying blind, basically.
Pretty much. Like driving without a map. It's that thing, isn't it? More money comes in, you feel you can relax the purse strings a bit. But without tracking, it just disappears. And then, okay, the really big one, delaying retirement savings.
Oh, yes. This one has such long-term consequences.
You feel so far away in your 30s, though.
It does, but this is where compound interest does its magic. And time is everything.
Okay, give us the numbers.
So the example our sources used, invest $200 a month, starting at 30 until you're 60. Assume, say, a 7% average return.
Okay.
You end up with over $226,000.
Not bad.
But if you wait until 40 to start that same $200 a month, you only end up with about $95,000.
Oh, that's less than half.
Over $130,000 less, just from delaying 10 years.
That really shows you time is money, literally.
It really is. The earlier you start, the more that snowball grows as it rolls downhill.
Okay, so time is critical. What else trips people up in their 30s?
Credit cards.
Yep. Racking up credit card debt. High interest debt is just brutal.
And the average debt for 30-somethings is, what was it? Over $5,500 in the U.S. And when interest rates are pushing past 20%,
oof, that's like quicksand.
It really is. It becomes this vicious cycle. You want the lifestyle, credit's easy to get.
You overspend a bit.
Then the interest makes it incredibly hard to pay down. It just holds you back from saving for anything else.
Okay, what about homeownership? The big dream.
It is the dream for many, but buying too soon before you're really financially stable.
Or stretching too thin for a bigger place.
Exactly. That can lead to a lot of stress and regret. Underestimating the total cost is common.
Right. It's not just the mortgage. It's taxes, insurance, repairs.
All of it. The case study of Sarah, the graphic designer.
Yeah.
She bought a nice house, then lost her job for a bit. Suddenly, that dream became a huge burden because she hadn't factored in all those extra costs or the risk of income loss.
That's tough. A real cautionary tale. And finally, for the 30s, insurance.
Yeah, ignoring insurance. Sometimes there's that feeling of, being young and invincible.
It won't happen to me.
Right, so maybe you skimp on health insurance or don't think about disability insurance.
Which protects your income if you can't work.
Crucial. Or life insurance, especially if people depend on you.
One big emergency, one health crisis.
And boom, your savings can just vanish if you're not properly protected. It derails everything.
Okay, let's shift gears. Moving into the 40s. Often peak earning years, right?
Generally, yeah. But mistakes that maybe weren't fatal in your 30s can become much bigger liabilities now.
So what are the key pitfalls here?
One big one is not diversifying income sources. Still relying on that single paycheck.
Even if it feels secure.
Even then, layoffs happen, companies change directions. It leaves you vulnerable.
So building resilience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your 40s can be a great time to explore maybe a side hustle based on a skill.
Or investing.
Yeah, things like rental properties, dividend stocks, maybe some freelance work. Just not having all your eggs in that one job basket.
Makes sense. Spread the risk. What else? Lifestyle creep.
Yes. The silent wealth killer.
Explain that.
Well, as your income goes up, it's so easy to just gradually spend more. A nicer car, more dinners out, bigger holidays.
Things that aren't necessarily needs.
Right. It's subtle, happens bit by bit. But over time, you just adapt to that higher spending level.
And then you're stuck needing that higher income just to maintain it.
Precisely. The advice we saw was try to keep your spending closer to your 30s level and invest the difference.
Easier said than done, maybe, but powerful if you can manage it.
Incredibly powerful. Avoids that trap.
Okay, and in your 40s, kids are getting older. College costs start looming large.
They really do.
Yeah.
And there's a strong tendency for parents to prioritize saving for their kids' college.
Which is understandable.
Totally understandable. But sometimes it comes at the expense of their own retirement savings.
That's the danger.
Yeah. The stat was average U.S. parent spends over $30,000 per child on college. If that means raiding your retirement funds or taking on huge loans yourself.
You could end up being a financial burden on your kids later.
Exactly. It's a tough balance, finding ways to support them without completely derailing your own future.
A real tightrope walk.
Yeah.
And sticking with retirement. A lot of people in their 40s still haven't actually planned for it, have they?
It's surprising, but yeah. Many haven't sat down and figured out, okay, how much do I actually need?
Have met the numbers.
Right. The stat was something like only half of Gen X have calculated their retirement need.
And without that target number.
It's hard to know if you're on track. Are you saving enough? Too little? You're just guessing?
So using those online calculators, maybe talking to a planner?
Essential. It gives you clarity, a goal to aim for, helps you build a real strategy.
Okay, and one more for the 40s? Estate planning, the thing nobody wants to think about.
Yeah. Wills, healthcare directives. It's easy to put off.
Feels morbid, maybe.
It can. But not having those basic documents in place, that can cause so much confusion, conflict, legal hassle for your family if something happens to you.
So it's really an act of responsibility.
Absolutely. An act of love, really. Protecting them from unnecessary stress later.
Right. Okay, on to the 50s. Now, retirement isn't some distant concept. It's looming, right?
It's right around the corner. And there's much less time now to fix past mistakes or make up for lost ground.
And the big regret here often seems to be just not having saved enough.
Yeah. This is when the reality hits hard if the nest egg is looking small.
That example of John, 55 years old.
With only $80,000 saved. It's a stark contrast to the guideline of maybe having, 7 times your annual salary saved by then?
7 times. Wow. Playing catch-up from $80 case seems daunting.
It is incredibly daunting. It forces really tough choices.
Like what? Maxing out catch-up contributions?
Definitely. Downsizing your home, maybe?
Working longer, delaying retirement.
All major life changes. Not easy decisions to make in your 50s.
No kidding. And another big challenge, carrying debt into retirement.
Yes. Starting retirement, still owing money on a mortgage, car loans, credit cards. It just eats into your fixed income.
Limits your flexibility right when you need it most.
Exactly. And the numbers are worrying. Over 70% of Americans aged 55, 64 still have debt. Credit cards are common.
So that debt payment is competing with, basic living expenses in retirement.
It really is. Reduces your wiggle room significantly.
And speaking of retirement income, Social Security, people need realistic expectations there.
Critically important.
Yeah.
It was never designed to be your only source of income.
It's a supplement.
Right. On average, it replaces only about 40% of pre-retirement income. Maybe less, maybe more, depending on your earnings, but it's not 100%.
So if you haven't saved enough elsewhere and you're relying mostly on Social Security,
you could be facing a pretty significant drop in your standard of living. It's just one piece of the puzzle.
Got it. Healthcare costs also become a much bigger factor in your 50s and beyond.
Oh, absolutely. Costs tend to rise quite a bit as we age.
Yeah.
That stat about the average couple needing over $300,000.
Just for healthcare and retirement.
Yeah, around $315,000 according to one estimate. That really highlights how crucial it is to plan for those costs. Understand Medicare. Maybe look into supplemental insurance.
It's a huge number to factor in. And finally, for the 50s, talking about money with family
becomes even more critical. Avoiding those conversations
can lead to problems later.
Definitely. Confusion about your wishes, disagreements, maybe even mismanagement of funds if you can't handle them yourself someday. Or worse, potential elder financial abuse. Having those open, sometimes difficult conversations proactively provides clarity and protection for everyone.
That makes sense. Now, it's important, like our sources said, to acknowledge everyone's situation is different, isn't it?
Absolutely. Life throws curveballs. Unexpected medical bills, needing to support parents or kids financially.
Cost of living varies wildly depending on where you are.
Huge variations. And you can't ignore bigger economic things either, like wages not keeping up or periods of high inflation. That makes saving harder for everyone.
True. But the point remains.
The point remains that awareness and planning still make a difference. Even within challenging circumstances, understanding these common pitfalls helps you navigate better.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
It really is. And that tale of two friends example, Ali and Nadeem.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
So, similar careers, similar earning potential over the years, but Ali was disciplined, saved consistently, invested smartly, started youngish.
And Nadeem?
Nadeem maybe earned a bit more sometimes, but lived more for the moment. Didn't prioritize saving until later.
And the difference by age 55?
It was stark. Ali had built up over $400,000 for retirement.
Wow. Security. Options.
Exactly. Nadeem,
what?
Less than $80,000.
Yeah.
Much more precarious position heading towards retirement.
That just shows the incredible power of consistent habits over decades. Even small amounts early on.
It compounds dramatically. It reminds me of that Ramit Sethi quote.
Which one?
The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Ah, I like that.
It applies perfectly to financial planning, doesn't it? Start early if you can, but starting now is always the next best thing. Never too late to take positive action.
That's a great message. And it's good to see some positive trends too, right? Like more accessible financial info.
Definitely. The rise of finfluencers, people making financial education more engaging online, on YouTube and places like that.
Makes it less intimidating.
And all the tech tools now. Budgeting apps, personal finance software, they make tracking and managing money so much easier than it used to be.
YNAB, Mint, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Plus, more workplaces are offering financial wellness programs.
That's a good perk.
Provides resources, education, sometimes even advice right there through your employer, helping people take control.
So, wrapping this deep dive up, looking across the 30s, 40s, 50s, what's the big takeaway?
I think it's that every decade has its own financial flavor, its opportunities, and its risks. The key seems to be continuous awareness. Reflecting on your habits, being willing to adjust as life changes, and just being proactive about planning.
Not just letting it happen to you.
Exactly. Strategically building as you go.
And the really empowering part is knowing it's never truly too late, right?
That's the core message. Understanding these common mistakes lets you avoid them, or maybe correct course if you're already on that path.
You can build a more secure future no matter your age or starting point.
Absolutely. It's about learning, acting, and moving forward.
Okay, so on that note, maybe one final thought for everyone listening to mull over.
Yeah.
Thinking about all these potential missteps we've discussed today, which one maybe resonates most with where you are right now?
Good question.
And more importantly, perhaps, what's one small thing, one little action you could take this week to start shifting your own financial path just a little bit for the better?